What's up, vinyl community? It's your boy Chris coming at you live as always from the Man Cave. Wanted to take some time today on this Friday to put together as quick a video as possible. I got a big stack to show you guys of new arrivals. I've been kind of slack lately. Of getting updates in. Not so much slack as I've just had some stuff going on. A couple little health things here and there. You know, nothing for any of you guys to worry about or anything. But I hope everybody's doing well. Hope everybody's having a wonderful Friday. I hope everybody had a wonderful weekend. I hope everybody's gearing up for a wonderful weekend. With that in mind, I got some different assortment of things to show you guys. I've got an unboxing of a record that just came in the mail. I've got some records I want to display from a brand new record store that just opened up really close to me. And then I got a bunch of recent finds from the last, let's just call it a couple months, maybe a month. So whatever, but don't want this to go on too long because again, got a bunch of stuff to show you. For any of those guys of you who are ever like interested, Legion Brewing, Pineapple Juicy J. If you guys are ever in Charlotte, North Carolina, I highly recommend it. It is delicious. All right. Without further ado, one I just got in the mail today. I've been waiting on. I took a chance on it, honestly. This is an artist. As guys, you know, I've told you that I've been on a pretty solid Pharoah Sanders kick for the last couple of months, and the kick hasn't really stopped. But this artist right here is an artist I was never really that aware of until I got into Pharoah Sanders, and so then I decided I wanted to get into some solo work of this here artist. Matter of fact, I have a record with this artist co-headlining with Pharoah that I got in San Diego last year. But anyway, the descriptions on eBay, very limited, very limited. Didn't really go into too deep on the condition or anything like that. There's a couple of pictures, but the price was dirt. And so it was one of those things where this is worth taking a chance on. So we're going to find out whether or not it was worth taking a chance on or not, but it's one of those things where even if it's not as described, I don't take that big of a nail. Packaging leaves a lot to be desired. I could have at least included the sleeve. Let's see what we got. But anyway, Norman Connor's Dark of Light with Herbie Hancock, Cecil McBee, Stanley Clarke, Eddie Henderson, Carlos Garnett, Gary Bartz, and Buster Williams. Well lined up on that one. Hype sticker. Still on special $249. Excelsior Records and Tape Distribution Incorporated in South Astoria, New York. So that's cool. I like stuff like that. That's the kind of thing I won't remove. I like that. It would have been nice if they had included the sleeve, though. I won't lie to you guys. Gatefold, cool stuff. Again, Norman Connors, I've really gotten into them. And for me, there's really two Norman Connors records if you're going to have them that you need to have. It's this one and the one before, so it's first and second, basically. And the wax doesn't look bad, guys. It needs a little cleaning. But other than that, not too bad. So I'd say so far, it looks like the risk was worth it. Glad the record showed up in one piece. Given, again, the packaging left something to be desired. But for the time, so I'll tuck this off to the side. And I need to improve the packaging later. But anyway, so I'll chop that up as a win, because again, I got it for dirt cheap. So, it's like a dub to me. Next up, keep on going. I live, as I've told you guys, 45 to 50 minutes away from my nearest record store. You got Noble, Lunchbox, you know, Repo, an hour to the north of me, 45 minutes to an hour to the north of me, depending on the traffic. And then to the south, you got Papa Jazz, a little spot called Scratch and Spins. Just very, you know, you have hit and miss spots. This one's mostly miss, but right across the street, you got a spot that sells some of the best fried chicken I've ever had in my life. So you scratch out the records and go warm yourself up with a 4-piece. Anyway, so downtown Rock Hill, South Carolina, had an antique mall. Has had an antique mall for a little while. Of course, I've never been in it because if it don't sell records, I'm not stepping in an antique mall. But here recently, they had decided to, I guess they took on another tenant or something like that started selling vinyl in his downstairs area, and it's known as Ramble On Records. Ramble On Records, like Ramble On, no doubt a Led Zeppelin fan, I'm assuming. But anyway, you go downstairs, you look off to your right, and there's, let's call it, you know, a section maybe a quarter the size of this room, pretty packed, pretty tight with vinyl. They've got some new stuff in, but almost everything is used, which I like. And prices aren't too bad. And I went in there the other day, I think last Friday after work, and got myself a little stack. Start off a couple of records that I had back in the day that, again, I've told you guys I wanted to go back and start replacing some of these records that I had back in the day, and I started selling off and trading off to beef up my jazz collection. Merle Haggard and the Strangers, Swinging Doors. It's an original pressing on Capitol Records. I love that album. I always love that album. It's one of my 2 or 3 favorites by Merle. And then next up is probably my favorite by Merle. It's Merle Haggard and the Strangers, Mama Tried. Also an original on Capitol. Both extremely clean, both for very good prices. Couldn't turn them down. Next up is an album that I'd actually been wanting for a while, and it's not really a hard one to find. For some reason or another, it just eluded me. I hadn't found it digging through the bins yet. Simple as that. So Jim Hall Concerto, Paul Desmond, Chet Baker, Ron Carter, Steve Gadd, and Roland Hanna. It's a great record. And of course, it's on CTI, guys. CTI, don't sleep if you want great jazz. If you're jazzing on the budget, if you want great jazz for an even better price, I highly recommend just about anything on CTI. So it's a phenomenal label. Next up, I've gotten to a point where I'm listening to more vocal jazz lately. I went through a span of several years where I listened to none, and now all of a sudden I'm accumulating vocal jazz albums, but of course only the ones I really like and the ones I really want to have. But this one is Ella Fitzgerald, Like Someone in Love. And once again, it's an original pressing on Verve Records. Thrilled to have it. Wonderful album. I mean, it's Ella Fitzgerald. Next up, though, probably the one I'm definitely the one I'm the happiest about in the stack. Spun it the other day, sounds phenomenal. Charlie Mingus, Tijuana Moods. Well, Charles Mingus, but his features on the cover of Charlie. I think this is the first album that ever had him listed as Charlie Mingus. Little fun fact here, Charles Mingus actually hated pretty much any nickname that could be derived from Charles. He preferred his birth name, Charles. But the album went ahead with Charlie Mingus, and to be honest, to this day, I'll still call him Charlie Mingus every now and then. Whatever. I'm more likely to not want to, seeing as how, he didn't even like it, so seems to me to be only fair. I wouldn't want somebody calling me, something I didn't want to be called. Anyway, phenomenal album. Thrilled. But anyway, guys, Ramble On Records. It's in an antique shop. It's in an antique mall in Rock Hill, South Carolina, in downtown Rock Hill. Good restaurants all around. Good beer scene, everything. I mean, it's a great area. It's a hip area, really, so there's plenty to do, even if you were to go in there and not find something you want. I realize that I'm not talking to very many people who will ever be in that area of South Carolina. But for any of you, if you ever end up in that area and you remember this video, tune sent you. Anyway, next up was one that is an RSD release, but my local shop did not get any copies on RSD. I had been told that it had been postponed to a later date in like June or some shit. But the day I went and got my RSD stuff, I look on Instagram and I see people posting this album left and right. I'm like, what the hell? So it turned out that this one and another one that I'm still yet to acquire did indeed pop up in and around the country or whatever, just not everywhere. And I'm like, okay, so I kind of dropped the tidbit, I think, on one of these videos, maybe even my RSD video, where I had asked you guys that, if you knew where I could find this one, to holler at me. Well, Joe, the Analog Archive, great channel, by the way. If you guys are watching me, you should definitely subscribe to him. Great jazz stuff, awesome guy, super knowledgeable. But thank you, Joe, for hipping me to a store. I think it's a shop in Chicago. Joe, I wish I remember the name of the shop. But it's Calvin Keys Full Court Press, RSD exclusive. Phenomenal record. I just love Calvin Keys personally. And this was one of the like 2 or 3, titles that I was looking most forward to on RSD. So when it didn't pop up, I was, pretty bummed. I still walked away with a pretty damn decent haul, I thought. But happy to have that one now. Next up, back to back vocal jazz albums, all from the same artist, as we were talking about vocal jazz a minute ago. But it's the great Chris Connor. Sings Ballads of the Sad Cafe on Atlantic. It's an original press. Then I've got A Portrait of Chris. Once again, Chris Connor. Once again on Atlantic. Again, great stuff. What a beautiful voice Chris Connor had. And Chris Connor sings the George Gershwin Almanac of Song once again on Atlantic. So a trifecta of Chris Connor releases. Thrilled to have each and every one of them. There'll be the ones that'll sit on my shelves for a while, and one of these days I'll just be in the mood to listen to vocal jazz, and then one of those will be there for me. Next up is, I'm not usually a big fan of this artist's discography, but this one's pretty good, and I got it at a really good price, and the cover is kind of corny, but it kind of stands out to me. I kind of like it. It's Cow Shader. Along Comes Cow. See what I mean? It's a corny cover, but something about it just kind of, it has its own little charm, if you will. Kind of stands out. But anyway, not a bad record at all. I'll find myself listening to it somewhere along the line on Verve Records. Next up, Sonny Stitt, Shangri-La with Don Patterson, Prestige. I mean, how many records did Sonny Stitt put out? And for how many labels? I mean, Jesus. Nobody can ever say the guy wasn't prolific. Nobody. Next up, Stimulation, Johnny Hammond Smith, also on Prestige. I may or may not have another copy of this album. I can't remember. Even when I bought it, I was like, do I have another one? When I went to go look in Discogs, it said I didn't, but here lately I've been finding that I'm not always the greatest at immediately logging something in Discogs. But I'll find out. If I have another one, I'll gift it to somebody. Herbie Hancock title, great stuff. Herbie Hancock, Thrust. From his 70s, from the 70s days, 1974. It's, Herbie, Mike Clark, Bill Summers, Paul Jackson, Bernie Maupin. It's Herbie. I mean, you can't really go wrong. You just really can't. Jazz Immortal Series Volume 1, An Evening at Home with the Bird. Charlie Parker. Savoy. I mean, come on. It's Charlie Parker. It's the Bird. Next up, Cannonball Adderley Sextet Jazz Workshop Revisited, featuring Nat Adderley and Yusef Lateef, recorded live in San Francisco. You don't very often see with Riverside titles that, like built on, kind of like hype sticker. It's not a hype sticker, but it looks like a hype sticker, and it's on the cover of the album. Contains the hit single Jive Samba. Phenomenal record that apparently used to belong to a gentleman named D. Young in Washington, D.C. And then signed by another person over here, I can't read their name, from Durham, North Carolina. I love to see how stuff like that kind of has its kind of little charms. But just, like somebody's initials in Sharpie, obnoxious. Stanley Turrentine, Don't Mess with Mr. T. And it's on CTI. Back to what I was telling you guys about CTI. This is another artist with a seemingly infinite discography. Everything seems to be pretty damn quality. And this is no exception. Highly recommend it to any of you guys if you see it and can be found for really reasonable. Next up, a couple of back-to-back Ronnie Laws. It's Ronnie Laws Fever. Blue Note release, Later Days, as witnessed by that. And Killer release. Same thing for the next one up. Ronnie Laws, Pressure Sensitive, excuse me. Ronnie Laws, Blue Note, great stuff. Next up, phenomenal record. If any of you guys see it, I highly recommend it. It's tremendous, and it's going to be won by an artist that not as well known as so many of the others you hear me talk about on this channel. Black Talk, Charles Early with Houston Pearson, Virgil Jones, Melvin Sparks, and Idris Muhammad. All right, now I'm positive that I have two of these. I got one over there on the shelves, and then I bought this one because it came to me so cheap that I was thinking, well, hell, for that I'll compare for condition of record, and then I'll gift the other one. So that's exactly what's going to happen. I already got a person in mind to gift it to. So phenomenal record, Prestige. Next up, we're going down to CTI Tip once again. Freddie Hubbard Skydive with Ron Carter, Billy Cobham, George Benson, Keith Jarrett, Ray Barretto, Erto, and Hubert Laws. It's Freddie Hubbard. And every Freddie Hubbard record on CTI is fine. Fun fact. You heard it here first. And every damn one of them is affordable. Makes it even better. So if you find yourself in a position to grab this one, don't jump on it. don't pass it up. Smash, don't pass. Next up, OG stereo pressing here of Ornette and tenor on Atlantic. Out of all of Ornette's work on Atlantic, this is probably my least favorite cover, but the record is killer, as is everything by Ornette Coleman on Atlantic Records. And I highly recommend it to anybody with a set of ears. Ornette Coleman on tenor, Donald Cherry on trumpet, Jimmy Garrison bass, and Ed Blackwell on the sticks. This shit's sick. Highly recommend it. Next up, the Golden Flute, Yusuf Lateef, original stereo pressing, Impulse Records. I love Yusuf Lateef. You guys have heard me say it probably more times than you can count, or even that I can count. So, of course, this Impulse got to show the gatefold. And then what's just as good as a gatefold is that good old-fashioned splat out firework label. And this bitch is clean, boys and girls. Hasn't been on my table yet, sadly. May have to remedy that problem here in a minute. But again, I absolutely positively love Yusuf Lateef. Next up is a couple by, I dare say, one of my favorite jazz artists, especially from the period. Lonnie Liston Smith and the Cosmic Echoes, Reflections of a Golden Dream. Absolutely killer record. I love Lonnie. If you guys are unfamiliar, you got to get it into your life. I'm serious. Lonnie Liston Smith. If you jot down anything that I talk about in this video, I think I want this to be it. Lonnie Liston Smith. Get yourself familiar if you're not already. Reflections of a Golden Dream. And then following up is a record I like even better. It's Lonnie Liston Smith and the Cosmic Echoes, Renaissance. Again, an album I like even better. But all Lonnie Liston Smith is worthwhile, worth your time. All of it. Get familiar. Next up, so I've been on a real hot streak for this artist, you will say. It's non-jazz. For the 4 or 5 of you that watched my last 3 or 4 videos, you're probably already kind of guessing where it is I'm going with the non-jazz, real hot streak for this artist. Country music queen, one of the greatest singer-songwriters in the history of popular music, in my opinion. And I think I'd have a hard time finding too many people to argue with that opinion. It is still sealed in its coat of many colors by Miss Dolly Parton. Still sealed, sticker here. Looks like the original price was scratched out for some reason, $296. Bastards. Somebody got this for $296. Still sealed. Wow. And of course, I would love to shred this plastic for you guys right now. But to be honest, I don't think I'm going to pop the plastic on this one until I'm ready to listen to it. So, there we have it. But my favorite Dolly Parton records are between, let's call it 1967 and 1975. For me, that's her peak as a singer, a true singer-songwriter, right before she truly became a megastar, a movie star. Not to say that there's anything wrong with that work when she became a movie star and a megastar, because damn it, that was all great too. But that span right there, that 67 to say 75, that's gold. And thrilled to have Coat of Many Colors by Miss Dolly Parton. OG. All right, we're getting down to the final handful here. Next up, Duke Pearson. Now hear this. Blue Note. Love Duke Pearson. What's not to love, obviously. Blue Note. Yeah. Absolutely phenomenal record. Absolutely love it. And original, of course, original stereo pressing. Recommend any Duke Pearson whatsoever. Next up is Having a Ball, Kai Tuff, Richie Kamuka, Harry Edison, Leroy Vinegar, Russ Freeman, Pete Jolly, Art Pepper, Bill Holman, Johnny Mandel, on World Pacific, Having a Ball. Yeah. I always love that cover. I think that cover's awesome. It's just a cool cover. It's just some kid apparently on the beach throwing a big ass beach ball. And I don't know. It appeals to me. I just like the cover. Great record, phenomenal lineup. This is an early reissue of an album I believe was originally pressed on Pacific Jazz, but it's High Tough Octet, you know, whatever. I can't remember the original title of the record, whatever. But phenomenal stuff. And then this is going to be cheaper, obviously, and I like the cover better. The original pressing of this album has got a couple of gentlemen standing there with their instruments or whatever. It's octet or sextet. I can't remember which one. I'm not positive, if I'm being honest. But this is a more desirable cover, and it can be found for cheaper. And I've never heard the very original pressing, so I have no source of comparison for sound quality. But for those of you, because every now and then I will buy albums because I prefer covers. Like, you know what? I have several albums in here where I've had a first and second pressing at the same time, but I like the pressing on I like the cover art on the second pressing better, and the sound quality was close enough, and I knew I could make my money back plus some on the first, and I flipped it. I've done that several times. Monk Meets Mulligan, for example. I did that, kept the second. I like the cover better, and the sound of the pressings were comparable enough. All right, next up, an artist that I love very much, Perception, the Art Farmer Quartet. It's original pressing on Argo. Front cover, not too bad. As you guys can see, the back cover is torched, but it's intact. Yeah, completely intact. But I don't know what the hell happened to the back of it, but it's okay. I got it for a great price, and the wax is in phenomenal condition. So there's all that. But love the record, love Art Farmer. By the way, it's Art Farmer, Harold Mayburn, Tommy Williams, and Roy McCurdy on the lineup here. Next up, the Tapscott Sessions Volume 1 by Horace Tapscott. Solo piano session. It is sick. So damn good. The only thing I say to deter you guys from buying this one is just understand that once you buy this one, you got about 10 more purchases to make. Because there's like, I think 11 volumes, the Tapscott Sessions. Tapscott solo piano, the great Horace Tapscott. So yeah, that's about the only way I'd warn you off is once you buy one, you gotta have them all. And so I got this one, gotta have them all. So I'm a man on a mission right now. It's phenomenal stuff. Again, Horace Tapscott, Nimbus Records. Finally and lastly, I'm gonna roll with this one. Not, that it's my favorite record in the stack or anything like that. It's just the one I felt like talking about last. It's Charles Mingus with Hampton Halls and Danny Richmond. And it's Mingus 3. The Charles Mingus Trio on Jubilee Records. Absolutely phenomenal record. Jubilee label. Not one that's, oh my God, well-renowned, everybody's got to see, but I show it to you guys anyway. Why not? Some of you guys may have never seen a Jubilee Records pressing. But this album here, what's funny about this one is it had just been reissued recently, and I was just about to grab myself a reissue. I mean, it looked good. Cover looked good. Quality of it was good. I'd heard good reviews, and I was getting ready to grab myself one. Matter of fact, I almost grabbed myself one the last time Ramona and I went to Lunchbox in Charlotte, sitting up there in the front for a reasonable price, under 30. So I almost grabbed it, but decided to grab an original pressing of something because I like, you know what, I can come back and get that later. It's reissued. And then my boy Marcus hit me up and told me he had this available. So I was pretty glad to have held off on that reissue. Not that I would ever not go back and get that reissue a little later, possibly as a companion or as comparison, whatever. But for now, I think this will do me. All right, I'm pretty sure I'm up to speed with all of you guys on what I've gotten lately. Sorry I got so far behind. I usually like to kind of put that in like 10 record increments if I can. But I had a lot of shit to show you guys this time. A lot of quality stuff. I got some big stuff coming down the pipe. A couple of Grails coming. A couple of them are going to be worthy of their own individual unboxings. I got a huge one coming from DC that I've been after for a while. Got a huge one coming from Richmond that I've been after for a while. Two huge ones coming from Richmond that I've been after one for a while. they're just not here yet. And so when they're here, I'll be happy to sit down and talk to you guys about those. But in the meantime, I hope everybody's having a wonderful week. I hope everybody has a wonderful weekend. I hope everybody's finding some great records. And if you're not finding some great records, then damn it, sit back and enjoy the records you already got, because I know you got some. I know you got some. If you're anything like me, I know you got some. And of course you're like me. Why else would you be watching the channel? So anyway, everybody, have a wonderful weekend. Sit down with some good food and drink. You know, enjoy your friends, enjoy your family, enjoy your company. And until next time, until next video, keep dropping that new video, guys.